Ball, every game on the board podcast, first section up. Our first handicapper, Mid-Major Matt, on Twitter at Mid-Major Matt. Mid-Major Matt, welcome into the pod. How are you?
Doing well. Seeing things really well in college football right now on a 60% run over my last 55 plays or so. Had a really good weekend last weekend with a mix of the FBS games and the FCS games. And sadly, we have no FCS games this weekend. So we'll have to focus on the big boys for this one.
The big boys starting off at the top of the card, 103, 104, 7:30 Eastern kick here. Talking about big boys, we got South Alabama and Georgia Southern in the Sun Belt. USA is catching 4.5 in Statesboro. 51 the total in the first game here, Mid-Major Matt.
Well, the first thing to look at here is the weather forecast because you're going to have the remnants of, I believe, Tropical Storm Zeta going through the United States. I know here in Virginia, we're going to be getting a ton of rain and wind and everything. So the forecast is rain and wind for this game. And it's something that we're going to have to watch as we get closer because obviously with the wind and the rain, that takes passing attacks out of play. And with Georgia Southern, you know that they run the triple option. So this would be very suited for them if it is like that. So let's take a look at both sides of this game. You've got South Alabama. 5 days ago, they won 38-14 over Louisiana Monroe. But, I don't know, South Alabama so far this year, their 3 victories against Texas State, Louisiana Monroe, and Southern Miss. 2-16 so far. They lost to Tulane and they lost to UAB. So what do we really know about South Alabama, a team that's given up 134 yards per game on the ground? You look at this Georgia Southern squad last week, very disappointing. They get a Coastal Carolina team that didn't have their starting quarterback, and they lose 28-14. A ton of turnovers. Shea Wirtz was brutal last week. And the first time since last November, the Eagles were actually outrushed in the game. So, it wasn't the best effort by Georgia Southern. They do have a really good rush defense. So if it is a game that takes away the passing attacks, then I think it does benefit Georgia Southern here. They have scored 28 points in the first quarter over their last 3 games. If you want to kind of shrink things down a little bit and look at a Georgia Southern first quarter here. But to me, I want to kind of see what the weather looks like as we get closer to tomorrow. Maybe it's a wake-up situation. If it's a wind and rain, I might be looking at an under and probably the home team because they're more suited for this sort of thing. If the conditions take away the pass, Georgia Southern certainly won't mind that. So we're going to kind of wait and see as we get closer what the weather forecast is going to be for this one.
Yeah, as we're, just over 24 hours away from kickoff on that game Thursday night. Guys, we got the Colorado State-Fresno State game also on Thursday night, but we go by rotation numbers, so we're going to hit that a little bit later in the podcast. We got Friday action here, Mid-Major Matt. ECU at Tulsa in a 61 being the total here. Tulsa -17 or -18 at home, depending where you're shopping.
Last year, Tulsa won this game 49-24 at East Carolina, and look, I actually like the Pirates this year. I think there's some potential there. They're coming off a bye week. 2 weeks ago, without Holton Ahlers, they lost 27-23 at home to Navy. We had the money line there, so that was a good win on the Navy money line. And they've lost to UCF, and they lost to Georgia State, and they won at South Florida. This team's played a bunch of road games, but they've shown the potential to score. The question is, can they score on a defense like Tulsa? The other thing that's a question here is for East Carolina, we've got a COVID issue coming. And last week or 2 weeks ago, as we said, Holton Ahlers was out due to COVID. Then there was all these other people that were out due to COVID. So to me, it's one of those things where you kind of have to read between the lines. Holton Ahlers returned to practice, so that's good, and that's going to help out this offense. And they actually talked about the Garcia kid may get a role down the line here as another quarterback here. So I'll be interested to see. The one thing that goes against East Carolina is 10% of their offensive snaps have resulted in a tackle for loss. So they work until they don't work. And so they either get big plays or they get tackles for losses. When you look at the Tulsa side, very impressive last week at South Florida. One of my few losses last week was the under in that game. And look, if you would have told me that South Florida would have had 13 points, I would have said, oh, it's an easy under. But of course, the South Florida team is a mess and a wreck and everything. So the unfortunate interceptions for a touchdown, it was brutal there. I still don't believe in this Tulsa offense. Zach Smith's been good. I think he's got 5 touchdown passes, 3 interceptions, but he hasn't been great. It is the home opener for Tulsa, and that makes some sort of that makes something there when it comes to a home opener this far into the season. There's a part of me that wants to take East Carolina plus the points. I don't know if I'm going to get there yet. It's another situation where I want another day to make sure the COVID situations are East Carolina are better. I believe they're testing today, so we'll get some results tomorrow from East Carolina. And also the over might be worth a look here because I think East Carolina is going to put up some points and their defense is bad enough that even Tulsa could score. So lean to the underdog here, but I want to wait on the COVID situation. Make sure that there's no tests that come out. Holton Ahlers doesn't get COVID all over again.
Mid-Major Matt, I want to get your quick opinion here on Tulsa. right out the gate, they had the #1 schedule in all of college football, playing UCF and Oklahoma State. So I kind of had them circled as maybe a little bit under the radar just because their record wouldn't be as sexy. But, I mean, we're seeing a -17, -18 here. Do you think there's value on Tulsa going forward?
I think going forward there is. I think, this is one of those things where I really like Tulsa's defense. The Collins kid's a really good linebacker. They've obviously Oklahoma State that first game, Sanders goes down. They bring in the freshman. He looked like a freshman. So that's why it was only a 16-7 score. And we know how fluky and flaky UCF is with all the penalties and everything. And then clearly that Tulsa game was, they just had a ton of penalties and Tulsa punched them in the mouth. And then the South Florida game, I mean, what can we take out of the Tulsa play in South Florida? If Tulsa figures out their offensive woes and starts to get more consistency from Zach Smith, then Tulsa's going to definitely be a buy-on team, especially down the line against some of the likes of SMU and Memphis if they play those teams.
All right, mid-major Matt, we got a couple more games on Friday, but none of them fall into your rotation numbers. And Marshall FIU was postponed, correct?
Sadly, it was. So that would have been a game I would have been very interested in because FIU is terrible.
So welcome to 2020 here with the other games on Friday night. We will hit a little bit later in this podcast. We got Saturday's action here, mid-major Matt. 109-110 Michigan State at Michigan. 24.5 or 25.5 is what Michigan's laying at home. They did look good week 1 against Minnesota. 52.5 being the total in the Big House.
So to me, I mean, you look at this game last year, Michigan won 44-10 at home. Excuse me. Michigan State lost 38-27 to Rutgers last week at home. And, I mean, it was brutal. Rocky Lombardi and that offense had way too many turnovers. The funny thing is Rocky Lombardi had 2 interceptions and a fumble, but he also had career highs in completions, passing yards, and touchdowns. So there was like flashes of brilliance there from Michigan State. They just got so far behind and their defense just didn't show up. The other thing was the rushing game was terrible. 39 carries for 50 yards. I mean, that's absolutely brutal. And when you look at a Michigan State team, and I mean, this is a huge rivalry game. And of course, there's the whole big brother, little brother sort of thing. And I was very surprised with what I saw from Michigan. Of course, Minnesota had all the COVID issues. I think they had a couple key defensive guys that weren't playing. They had some special teams guys, some offensive linemen. So that kind of helped. But Joe Milton was very impressive. 277 yards and 2 touchdowns in the win. They put up 49 points. They're still really young in certain places. I mean, their defensive secondary is very young. They are young in the backfield. Their offensive line still has 1 starter back from last year. I think you guys have read it was only 17 starts total. It's their first home game of the season. To me, and I'm going to wait a little bit to see, but I think I'm going to look at the under for Michigan's team total here. I think Michigan had a very impressive game against Minnesota. I think Michigan State's defense will be better than they were last week. I'll probably also potentially look at Michigan State's team total under, and so people probably say, well, why don't you just take the game under? Well, by taking the 2 team total under, sometimes you get a little bit of value because they don't readjust the total so much. So in certain situations, this total was 53.5. Well, they may have Michigan State and Michigan totaled at 53.5 on their team totals, but the total itself may fall. So there may be a point of value that you can get from there. So I'm probably going to look at maybe the Michigan team total under, maybe a little bit of nerves in their first rivalry game against Michigan State, and maybe the Michigan State team total under, although I am concerned about how young this Michigan defense is.
All right, we got a few more games here on the Saturday card for this section, guys. This is the Sports Memo Podcast, wherever you're downloading your podcasts at. Remember, Sports Memo Podcast, also simulcast each and every Wednesday on the WagerTalk YouTube channel. Next game up here, mid-major Matt, 12 noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific kick. 111-112, Wake Forest at your alma mater, Syracuse. We're seeing the Demon Deacons minus 11.59 being the total.
Well, Syracuse beat Wake last year, 39-30 at home. It was a fantastic game. I remember it because it was one of Syracuse's few wins last year. So Wake Forest is coming in off this Virginia Tech game. They beat them 23-16. But if you look at this game, I think Wake Forest is coming in a little bit overvalued here. Of course, it's a great win to beat Virginia Tech, and they sweep the Virginia schools those last 2 weeks. But you're also looking at a Virginia Tech team that shot themselves in the foot quite a bit. There were some penalties. There were some turnovers there. Hendon Hooker threw 3 interceptions. Tech just didn't seem like itself. And so now we're basically saying that Wake Forest is this juggernaut to be laying 11 points on the road here. And I don't know necessarily if I can do that. Syracuse showed a pulse last week against Clemson, losing 47-21. It was a close game. It was a 1-score game until the end when Clemson kind of pulled away a little bit. But to me, there's 3 injuries and 3 situations you have to watch with Syracuse. Running back Sean Tucker, who had one of those touchdowns, who's probably their best offensive player, he was banged up, so his status is important. Trill Williams is very important, too. He's a cornerback for Syracuse. By the way, according to Pro Football Focus, Syracuse has 2 cornerbacks in the country that have not allowed a touchdown yet this year. So it's a situation where how is Wake going to score their points? They're probably going to run a lot. And then Taj Harris, who didn't make the trip to Clemson, the reason why most likely is because he told everybody that Syracuse was number 1 last week and flipped the bird to the camera. So it would seem like a disciplinary issue for Syracuse. So I really do want to get to the window with Syracuse, but I need to know Sean Tucker and Trill Williams' status. It's arguably the best player on their offense and the best player on their defense right now. And without both those guys, I probably could see myself going under on Syracuse's win total. I mean, they're running out of guys, or it's not win total, team total here. Syracuse is just running out of talent on offense. And if Tucker's not playing, and if this Culpepper kid is okay, Taj Harris is good. The Quealy kid's starting to pick it up a little bit for Syracuse. But to me, this is a lot of points that if Syracuse has Tucker and Williams, I'm probably looking at them at home on Saturday.
Staying in the ACC, we got 113, 114 here. UNC at Virginia. We're seeing the Tar Heels -6 in the hook in Charlottesville, 61.5 the total.
By the way, Corey Williams says Syracuse's defense might keep them in this game. Good luck with that. I mean, they got pushed around by Liberty. I keep going back to that. They got pushed around by Liberty, and you can argue that Clemson wasn't taking Syracuse seriously last week. So I wouldn't make this play based off of the Syracuse defense. That's for sure. I'm basically hoping that Sean Tucker plays and that Taj Harris plays and that Syracuse somehow resurrects some sort of offense. That's the only reason why I would take Syracuse. All right, to the UNC Virginia game. UVA won this game in Chapel Hill last year, 38-31. So there's revenge. I know Ralph doesn't necessarily believe in revenge, but there is some sort of revenge here. UNC looked really good last week, 48-21. They beat NC State. One of the things is UNC's secondary is ravaged by injuries, defections, and all this stuff. Storm Duck, who has the best name in college football, probably. He is their best cornerback. He's not playing in this game, so that's a factor here. But Sam Howell should be able to get whatever he wants. Last week, UVA had some COVID issues. Lavelle Davis, who was one of their best wide receivers, their starting safeties also had COVID, so we don't know about that. And then even with all the injuries and stuff, UVA nearly won at Miami. 19-14 they lost. Brendan Armstrong was pretty strong, 16-30, 181 yards and 2 touchdowns. He had 91 yards rushing, which was a career high, and Virginia was able to rush the ball on Miami. So that should be something to look for here. But once again, the one thing, and this is the common thread here, and this is why if you buy my package or if you see my stuff, I don't really put a lot of my plays in until Thursday or Friday because the UVA COVID situation. If Joey Blunt and Brenton Nelson, their 2 starting safeties, don't play, Howell should tear them up, and this is an over game. But if both of them play, then I think Virginia's a very live dog at home. Lavelle Davis, who also had COVID, is likely out for this one. Now, the coach hasn't said he had it, but he said basically he's out, for situations and circumstances. But, coaches can't say that sort of thing. It's what is the medical situation? You can't say somebody's health, whatever it is. They also lost cornerback Darius Bratton against Miami and starting right tackle Ryan Swoboda, so that's 2 other things to look for here. If we get the sense that Joey Blunt and Brenton Nelson are going to play, I think Virginia is a very live dog at home, but we're not going to know until Saturday most likely. I have some spies that I have in Charlottesville. I'll try and see if I can get some information out of them regarding those 2. But to me, if these 2 safeties play, I'm looking at Virginia as a home dog. If they don't play, I'm looking at the over here because I think Virginia could put some points up on UNC, but I also think Sam Howell should be able to go crazy.
Mid-Major Matt heading down to Conference USA action. UTSA at FAU. We're seeing the Owls -5 and Boca Raton, 47.5 being the total.
So this line doesn't make a lot of sense to me. You look at this Florida Atlantic team, and we were talking before the show about Willie Taggart. I'm not a Willie Taggart guy. And last week they lost 20-9 at Marshall. They've had 3 weeks off, so there was probably some rust there. But you look, the backfield, Larry McCammon's waiting for an MRI. BJ Emmons is rehabbing an ankle injury. They've got the Tronte kid, who I'm not very impressed with. And by the way, COVID once again. They brought 57 players last week, just above the mandated minimum of 53 scholarship players. They missed their starting tackles. They had like 30 guys not be able to travel here. So this is a team that's already dealt with a bunch of COVID issues, and yet they're a 5.5-point favorite against a UTSA team coming off a 27-26 win at Louisiana Tech. They snapped the 3-game losing streak. At least UTSA is playing game after game after game. Now, they haven't looked great, and they've had the quarterback situations. Lowell Narcisse gets injured. He's done for the season and everything. But to me, UTSA seems live here, Drew. I mean, I know you do a little bit with Florida Atlantic, but when you've got 57 players just above the 53 available scholarships and you've had COVID issues all month and all season so far, why are you a 5.5-point favorite against a team that's consistently played every week, even if they're not playing at their best?
Mid-major Matt, I wouldn't bet on FAU -5 with your money, man. I was looking to fade them right out the gate, just the fade on Willie Taggart. We've seen the market, and what you're talking about is just an add-on here. I don't want to bet FAU in any form or fashion. I know that they are at home. UTSA is not one of the better programs in Division I. That's being very kind, but it's UTSA or pass for me, man.
Exactly. I agree. And I don't know if I'm going to get to the window yet with that because of, once again, the COVID. I'd like to get some sort of sense as to if FAU is ravaged once again by COVID, then yeah, I'm definitely, I might even sprinkle a little on the money line here, but 5.5 seems like a gift here. But once again, COVID rears its ugly head and we have to kind of figure out who's going to be there and who's not going to be there.
Mid-major Matt, next game up, we got heading to the Big 12 here. Still 12 noon Eastern kick. Man, the noon Eastern slate is pretty stacked. We got Kansas State at West Virginia. We're seeing the Mountaineers -3 in the hook, 46 the total.
This one, and I saw Chris Felica talk about it on Twitter. He said this line reeks, and I kind of agree with him. Now, West Virginia has dominated the series as of late. They won in Manhattan 24-20 last year. Kansas State looked impressive last week, the 55-14. I know Skylar Thompson's status is up in the air, so that's something to look for. The under is hit in 8 straight meetings between these two teams, and Kansas State is hoping that cornerback A.J. Parker is going to play in this game. West Virginia, they lost at Texas Tech last time out, 34-27. 3 of their 4 Big 12 conference games have been decided by 7 points or less. Everything is pointing to West Kansas State, but I haven't had a good feel for Kansas State. I feel like the past couple of years, they're a team that their offense isn't that impressive, and it's basically, can their defense keep them in games? And so I'll be interested in what you think, Drew. I mean, I'm leaning to Kansas State, but once again, much like the game we just talked about, the line seems to reek a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not 100% sold on Kansas State. We should probably get Kelly in Vegas's opinion on that one. But West Virginia, I'm actually looking to be betting on Troy Brown more than fading him. So it would be a Mountaineer spot, but I doubt I'm involved in this one.
Yeah, I agree. I'm involved in this one. And once again, probably a Big 12 person would be better at this one. But the few times I've dabbled with Kansas State, I've seemed to miss because their offense either doesn't show up when I have an over or their defense doesn't show up when I have an under. And so it's been tough for me to figure out this Kansas State team.
All right, Mid-Major Matt, we got Boston College at Clemson up next as we only got 2 games left in this segment. We're seeing Clemson -31, 61 the total here.
I mean, I'll give this away. I already sent this out to my clients. I took the over. I just think this is a perfect situation here for an over. You've got Clemson, who last week, I mean, look, their offense is ridiculous. They've scored 40 points almost every game so far this season. They beat Syracuse 47-21 last week, and that was with a bunch of punch and an interception. I mean, Clemson is just a steamroller. The thing that I want to think about here is I'm hoping it's mostly in the first half and third quarter because Clemson's got the dreaded look-ahead factor here. It's Notre Dame next week. You know that Clemson's going to beat Boston College. Last year, they won this game 59-7 as a 35-point favorite. You know that they're probably going to win this game rather easily once again. But towards the third and fourth quarter, end of third, beginning of fourth, you might see them start pulling people because they've got bigger fish to fry, especially on defense. James Skalski, the linebacker, who I've read quotes from Dabo Sweeney basically saying he's the heart and soul of the defense. He could miss the next few weeks. Xavier Thomas has been in and out of the lineup. Tyler Davis has been out of the lineup. But Darion Kendrick, the best cornerback on their team, is expected to return. So he'll most likely line up with the Flowers kid. You look at Boston College, they're coming off the 48-27 win at home against Georgia Tech. I'm kicking myself for not taking Boston College in that game because I'm not impressed with Georgia Tech. And the run game finally got on track. Look, this is a Boston College team that we know, the past 100 years, it feels like. Run, grind it out. A.J. Dillon, name all your past BC running backs. Well, this team with Jerkovic at quarterback is a passing team. And I think that these two squads, I'm seeing like a 45-21 game. So I'll give this out to everybody. I think, A, this is an over, and B, I took the team total over for Boston College. It's 14.5. I think they can score 17. Of course, they did screw me in that Virginia Tech game because I did have the team total over there, and they fumbled the ball 19,000 times. but I think Boston College can score in this game. I think Clemson will certainly score in this game. So over Boston College team total over. And heck, I might even consider a Boston College first half team total over because it's 6.5. You just need one touchdown from Boston College, and I think there's a chance they can do it. So that's something else I would look forward to. So for those who don't say I give out anything, I literally just gave you my client plays right there on this game.
Mid-Major Matt appealing to the haters out there. But guys, check out his handicapper page at sportsmemo.com. 33-21. That's 61% his last 55 college football plays. There is one draw involved. He's also 40-31 and one draw, 56% in his last 72 NFL props. Check it all out. sportsmemo.com. He's also got his 3 and 7 day package and the $199 November football package, which gives you all of his NFL and college football plays for the month of November and whatever he releases here in the month of October for a huge discount there, just $199. Follow him on Twitter at MidMajorMatt, myself on Twitter at DrewMartinBets. Guys, if you're watching on replay here on the YouTube channel, feel free to drop a comment below. Love seeing what you guys are betting on. Plus, huge shout out to the chat box here. Ashley Waite, we got Johnny Outlaw. What is up, Johnny? Abby Jackson as well. Instinct. Welcome in, and hopefully this Clemson over plus the Boston College team total over. And if you can find it, I know I don't bet them there, Mid-Major Matt. First half Boston College team total over. Do you know what sports books offer that?
I'm looking at Pinnacle right now. It's minus 139. I don't love the juice on the over there. Minus 139. It would be something I would dabble in. It's because obviously you're going to get the Clemson A-level defense in the first half, so I would go a little less than normal, but to me, I think the game over. I mean, don't you agree? This game screams 45-21, 47-21, don't you think?
Projecting Clemson games in situations like this, I think is very difficult. I don't disagree with you. Yes, I could see those scores. I could also see it 55-7, Matt. If I'm being,
over too, then there you go.
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely not betting the under here unless we have like some terrible weather issues that I'm not familiar with as of right now. But yeah, I agree with you on that over of 61. Boston College 14.5 team total over. I don't know. I haven't seen enough Boston College this year. I'd have to do a little bit more research.
Their offense is solid. I mean, Jerkovic, when he gets time, has Hunter Long, the tight end, and Flowers, the wide receiver. They flashed a little bit of run game last week against Georgia Tech, so maybe they carry that over. And heck, if Syracuse can score 21 on Clemson, Boston College should be able to score 17, I would think, at least.
Okay, fair enough there. We got one game left here, 1-2-1, 1-2-2, Virginia Tech at Louisville. We're seeing 67.5 being the total with the Hokies laying 3 in the hook on the highway.
I was very surprised about how Tech came out last week. And the good thing for Tech is only 8 players were unavailable. And we've seen that number go down. I mean, I think it was 28 that first game that they played, and then it's gone down and down and down. My worry with Virginia Tech's defense is there's a lot of talent there, but if a lot of the COVID absences are on Tech's defense, how much continuity are they getting as a unit? Louisville's such a tough team to figure out. Louisville was very impressive last week against Florida State. They got the passing attack going. Cunningham's just such a tough guy to figure out on a week-to-week basis. Good Michael Cunningham, or whatever he's calling himself nowadays, he's going to score a bunch of points, and then the points will be available against Virginia Tech. Bad Cunningham, my goodness. I mean, he could be really good or really bad. So it's trying to figure out what's going to happen here. I think we're going to get a better Tech effort. I do. There's no way that they're going to score 16 points again in a game the rest of the season. They're going to put up more than that when they play Clemson. I think that game's in December. Justin Fuentes, 12-4 off a loss. This is a live betting game to me, folks. I think that this is a live betting situation because I want to see how Tech comes out. I look, the 67 number is really high for a reason because Tech's going to score and Louisville probably will score. But if the wrong Cunningham shows up, then it's a little high. I think Tech can put up some points in this game. Not Justin Herbert. I've got NFL in mind. Khalil Herbert, the Kansas transfer for Tech, has done really well. So to me, this is a live betting situation. I want to see how Tech comes out. I also want to see how many people are unavailable for Tech as their number continues to reduce. I think Tech's the better team here. I don't love that it's on the road, and I don't love that when Cunningham's on, he's really good and is a difference maker. So I'd like to watch this first quarter, first couple drives, see how Cunningham looks, see who's available for Tech. And depending upon the live situation, I'll probably get in on this game. But pregame, it's so tough to figure out which Cunningham's going to show up for Louisville. They could certainly put up the 48 they did last week against Florida State, but if the wrong Cunningham shows up, they could put up 16 like Florida State did last week as well.
And answering Johnny Outlaw's question in the chat box, yes, 2 o'clock Pacific is the next segment up for college football, every game on the board with Robbie Vino. And we'll start off with the Notre Dame game and head on down. Guys, we got 4 sections for every game on the board in college football. It will be Jeff from Oskeim Sports at 4 p.m. Pacific, and then Teddy covers in the 4th section on Thursday morning as well. So with the more games, with the Big Ten, Mountain West coming in, we got to kind of add another section here to not put too much workload on the handicappers. But thank you for joining us live, guys. Huge shout out to the chat box. Also, if you're watching or if you're listening via podcast, we appreciate it as well. If you could smash the like button, that does help us out. Also, let us know in the comments below. Follow Mid-Major Matt on Twitter at Mid-Major Matt. Check out his packages, sportsmemo.com. We got the $199 November football special. He's 33, 21-1, 61%. His last 55 college football plays. Mid-Major Matt, is there anything you want to leave us here? Any closing words and maybe a best bet for the section? Would it be the Clemson BC over?
Yeah, it would be the Clemson BC over is the best bet. The second best bet would be the Boston College team total over. If you can get below at 14 or below, that's great. Pinnacle has 14.5. The over is plus 102, so that's not terrible juice. I'm sorry if we're not supposed to promote any books, but it's literally the one I'm looking at. A lot of the books don't have the team totals out yet for Saturday. So if you can get 14 or below, then I think that one's good. And then the 6.5 is worth a dabble, a sprinkle, because as I said, you're going to get a full focus Clemson effort probably in the first half. But all they need is one fluke touchdown, and Boston College gets that over there. So yeah. And the sad thing is, Drew, no VIP section today. There is one FCS game on Friday, apparently. I did not realize that and didn't do any research yet, but it's just 2 FCS teams, no FCS, FBS games, and it's very disappointing for me.
All right, guys, we'll be back at 2 o'clock Pacific time with Robbie Vino breaking down the next section of every game on the board. Best of luck with your bet.